Hey y'all, it's Sarah. I have another Christmas craft for you guys, and I cannot fit the entire thing in the screen. It's a pretty good size, but I wanted to show you kind of how to do this. I have not finished this one, and I'm going to walk you through doing one of your own, and that includes kind of how to get the shape. So let's dive into this. I'm going to put this guy to the side because I want to finish him, and I'm going to start a new one. I'm going to be using, obviously, some Readi-board brand foam core. This is found in your school supply section, the poster board section, office supply section of most of your stores. I typically get mine at Dollar Tree, but Walmart and Dollar General carry it. Probably several other stores that I don't even know. This comes in a 20 by 30 sheet. I have cut mine completely in half. Which makes mine a 15 by 20 piece. You could always do this to whatever size you could possibly want. I did it at this scale because I am making more than one. If you just wanted to do one big one, you could do that. But what I'm about to show you on getting kind of the shape should help you no matter what size you want to go with it. So the other thing we're going to need, and depending on how nicely you end up cutting down, you're only going to need about 3 or 4 painted out strips. So my strips are almost always 3 inches, unless I tell you guys otherwise for a certain project. It's just convenient for me, but mine are 3 inches by 30 inches. I've got 4 pulled out here in random different colors. These all came out at different times of me painting. Typically, I lean more towards the salvage barnwood look, so I will link that tutorial below because it'll tell you how to get kind of this this multi-tonal look. And those videos I'm going to keep separate. That way I have enough time to actually show you the craft. The other thing is just a scrap of some kind. And you'll kind of be able to determine that once you get your stocking itself cut out and you size it to kind of visually make your eyes happy. I did a couple different sizes for this one. Not really sure. I wasn't really sure how large I wanted it. I ended up doing a couple different sizes and settling on this size, but that's kind of a visual thing. I really wanted my little cuff part pretty large. So any kind of scrap, when you get down to the end, look and see if you've got any scraps. I'm going to tell you this one is about 11 by 7, 6.5 maybe. So that's what I'm going to be using. A couple other ideas. So you could always go this route. This is one of the Dollar Tree microfiber dust mop pads. And this one's already really fluffy. It's already got a good shape, so easy to adhere. You honestly would not even need a base piece like this if you're using this one. More than likely you would be able to just adhere it down to the surface of this and be fine. I already had one of these guys that had been cut into, so this is one of the microfiber car cloths. I had one that had been cut into smaller pieces. I layered mine to get this kind of real fluffy thickness, so there's 2 layers on here. There is more than enough. This is 16 by 24. There's definitely more than enough to do a couple layers or a couple projects. So enough of the rambling. Let's jump in and I will show you maybe, hopefully. I'm not really an artist. I probably can draw maybe a little better than the average person. I'm not totally an artist, but I am pretty decent at showing people who are also not artists how to kind of fake their way through drawing. And to make this super simple, here's what I did. I'm going to come in on this background piece. And essentially how I did this is I wanted to make sure that my pieces all ran pretty nicely with my cuts. And by that, I mean, I was able to get 3 full strips without having to cut them down. Same kind of with my toe area here. So I wanted to try to keep my strips in decent alignment once this was all laid down. So I actually used my strips as my guide to draw mine out. And in order to do that, I lined up 3 against the very edge of my piece. And let me slide this over so I can try to do that. I've got my little stopper in the way, and it makes it kind of weird when I'm showing you guys. And I'm sorry if I'm talking fast and trying to get a lot of information out there. I don't get to craft very long today because I have to adult. So there's a couple things that I really want to knock out in the meantime. Okay, so here's where I've got it. I've got it flush against this one side. I've got all 3 strips over here. I'm going to try to hold these guys in place for myself and come straight down. So that lets me know, whoops, I missed a spot there. That lets me know this is how far over my 3 strips would come on that stocking. Now keep in mind, if you're wanting to go at a larger scale, this same process will work. Just kind of why I'm showing you this way. It's going to work on a larger scale too. You would just expand out on the number of strips that you're using. So in order to get my little foot area here, my little rounded shape here to match up to this where it was kind of cohesive in size and scale, I took these very same strips. I'm going to move that out of my way. I need all the space I can get here. I took the very same strips, kind of put them on a diagonal. You can go straight across if you like a fully across, because we're gonna kind of round this out. You can do it on a slight angle. I opted to kind of go on a slight angle here all the way down to this bottom corner so I could get the most out of this full sheet. However you want to do that, this is going to work out. You can come way up, you can come way down. It's just going to give you a little bit different look on your little sock part. So I'm basically coming probably about, I would say this is about 1.5 inches up from this bottom corner down there. Oh, I need my top line. So keeping it on that very same angle, let me realign these here. I'm keeping it on that very same angle. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And you guys can kind of see where that went. So our little sock part is going to be very even with the kind of leg part. So I grabbed just something round. This is just a plastic plate. Anything that kind of leans towards your size here will pretty much work out. I'm going to come in right at this edge, and I'm still going to have to adjust this. I'm still going to have to sketch a little, but this gives me, at least tells my brain a little bit of evenness. I'm going to do the same thing right here in this bottom corner-ish where the heel is going to be. And you can turn around and do this, flip it to the other direction and have it face the other way too, if that's kind of your favorite. So you can kind of see where this went, maybe. I'm not sure if you guys can see how my lines came out. Let's see if I can turn that where maybe you can see where these lines kind of appear. So the only thing I'm going to do now is right here where it looks pretty harsh where my circle hit. Whoops. I'm just going to swing in and soften that just a little where it blends. Wasn't much to it. I just kind of softened that little curve right where it hit up to that line. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to drop that curve down a little bit. I'm going to leave this part alone because it was pretty round. It works out for me. And the same thing here. soften the curve there. If your curves are not that great, use something round and just cheat. So for me, I'm going to dip down a little bit just because I kind of like that little, that kind of look with the foot of my stocking. I gave it just a little bit of dip underneath there, but you could still go straight across if you'd like. Okay, this is pretty much giving us our base form for our stocking. Now all we do is have to cut this out, apply our slats, and trim back around it again. In order to do that, I'm just going to use my blade. You guys are going to watch me be awkward at this because I'm standing in a weird position. Normally I sit and am able to focus really well on getting a nice, clean, smooth cut when I'm doing a shape, but standing like this makes it a little weird for me, so we'll see how this turns out. So I'm going to come in right here where this one curve shoots around. I really feel like I need to put my little finger guards on, guys. I get so much more control in doing something like this. You could also do this with one of the free hand tool that I showed in the cool tool video. But not everybody has access to that just yet, so I wanted to show that you could still do the shaped cuts this way, this kind of old-fashioned way here. So I'm going to swing around, hopefully. And once you get one finish that you like the shape of, you can always use that as your kind of stencil. So I'm looking at it now, and the one thing I didn't do is I kind of put like a little swoop right here also on mine, just for the visual. So since I am noticing that now, I don't like how flat that bottom is, I'm just going to come in and add like a little swoosh. Not much, just a little. Now let's see if I can work that swoosh in here. There we go. A little bit of a swoosh. Not much. Now, when you're cutting this out, if you do not get perfection on your edges, that's okay. You have the opportunity to clean that up quite a bit once you put your little strips over the top of this. Because we're going to be trimming around it all over again. And you could do this in reverse. You could have drawn this out, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is where I had the hardest part, was right here in this smaller curve. I will tell you that was honestly the hardest part to cut. And here we go. We have a little bit of a stocking. Mine, I think my other one has more of an incline upward, and that's okay. So what you could have done is, while it was still intact, while it was still drawn out, glue your pieces down to this side, and then you could have tried to cut it all out at once by flipping it over and getting your back side. I didn't do that just because I have a hard time with doing things in reverse. Being right hand dominant, I wouldn't have had as easy of a time sweeping around backwards, which is part of why I made my stocking face this direction, if that makes any sense to you guys. So all I'm going to do now is I want to align these, because I want to try to use, I told you could get away with like 2 or 3. I want to try to use as much of this remaining scrap down here as I can to finish out my little toe area. So we'll see how that works. That's why I said likely you can do this with 3 at the scale that I'm doing right now. And that's really going to depend on how nicely I get this cut out and how much is usable after. So the first ones that you want to get attached down is your 3 longer pieces. And honestly, I did it the other way. I did it the way that I just showed you, where I lined up along there. But if I'm being honest with you, you're likely to get more usable pieces if you start down here at this foot section. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just switching out my kind of little wood pieces so that I've got kind of some visual variety in their color here. I want to flip this over really quick just so I can see, make sure that I didn't miss any spots. Okay, it looks like I'm good. I don't have a lot of overhang. I've got my cuts really nice. So I'm ready to glue. I'm just going to come in here and start applying my glue. If I can pick this guy up. And I'm going to glue just those 3 down. And instead of starting here where I thought it was easier to keep at that flush line, I'm going to go ahead and start down here. I feel like my scraps will have a nice clean cut if I start that direction instead. Not sure why I didn't think of that the first time. So I want to make sure that my edges are good. Good adhesion. We are golden. So I definitely feel like I'm getting a lot less waste being able to come in and just trim that down. I'm going all the way up to the edge of this. I use a lot of hot glue, and I'm just using the Dollar Tree hot glue. If you wanted my opinion on this, this is the best route to go gluing the foam core. You are less likely to have any moisture damage from hot glue. And once you have your form down, you guys could have easily turned around and done it horizontal too. And you could still do that. You could do a couple this way where they're vertical. You could do a couple horizontal. All your little stockings kind of have their own unique look. Mostly I just wanted to show you how to get a pretty general, easy stocking shape. I know a lot of people aren't necessarily comfortable sketching out things, so I think I need to reload, but that should be enough to get me to stick. Okie dokie, here's where we stand so far. See how easy that will be to trim that off. I still don't know why I didn't do it that way to begin with. I'm going to come in here with my ruler. I'm bumping this up. This is the best way for me to get flush cut edges. I use my blade to push my ruler right up against the edge of that foam core. Whoops. I missed somewhere in there. Let's see. That middle one. So now I have a couple pieces that I can use for the toe. Really quick to make this super simple, I'm just going to come in here while it's down. Swoosh into my little stocking here. Ta-da, so easy. Once you kind of have an idea of how to get that halfway decent stocking shape, you pretty much have the freedom to do whatever you want to after that point. It's just kind of knowing a good method of getting that stocking shape and being able to do it more than once. So all I'm going to do here, let's reload. gonna load this puppy down with a whole lot of glue, especially around those edges. I'm gonna tell you, when you cut into these edges and you're not going along that that kind of grain of the foam, and by that, when I talked to you guys about the ripples that you can see lengthwise in this foam, that's almost going against the grain. So when you cut these shapes, these rounded out shapes, those kind of thing, it can make it more prone to want to have that surface come apart on you. I'm going to make sure that they're stuck down really nice. Okay, since this was my hardest part, you're liable to see me struggle again doing this. And remember, you can still trim it down a little more, even if you don't get it right. You can see I've got a little bit of jaggedness. You're going to see me come in with a very fine grain Dollar Tree sanding block and clean up that little bit of jaggedness there. And there we go. Everything's cut out. I'm going to come in with a very fine grain and kind of clean that up. Now, if you don't have perfect edges, it's okay. We're going to be able to go back in with the paint. When we do our edges, because I always do my edges, we'll be able to come back in, hit those edges with the paint, and it'll hide a lot of your imperfections. So I will be able to do the very same thing right there on that spot. Your last step, and I wanted to show you this because it ended up working out for me. I wasn't sure if I cut it down this time, if I was going to line it up the same way. This is the remaining piece, and this is what mine was cut out to frame. And I covered with my little cloth. You can see what I'm talking about with this one. This particular one, you don't even have to trim down. If you go with the scale that I just showed you, with the 3 strips wide, you don't have to do anything but literally glue this down to the top of your piece and you are good. Now, there are all kinds of options here on decorating this. I had all kinds of florals that I could have put. I'll show you a few of those things. I also wanted to show you, if any of you guys have this gray baby blanket from last year, that one's a really cute option. You got all kinds of directions you can go with this. I don't like to lock y'all into the final decor of a piece. I know that once I see a final decorated piece, my brain kind of gets stuck on that particular image, and it makes it really hard for me to come up with something new. So that's part of why I don't necessarily show individual decorations on a piece. But I am going to show you what I'm doing with mine. So the last thing you're going to want to do, come in, use your paint, do your edges, clean that up. That's your kind of quality control part. I want to jump into how I plan on finishing out my piece, because I'm going to be using vinyl, and if you can see, I cut something out already from some Paper Studio removable vinyl in white. And I know a lot of you guys have questions, so I felt like I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone on this project. So I want you to see kind of what I did. I'm not sure if you can tell just yet. Vinyl is a tricky thing on these boards, and here's why. If you ever notice, when you pull a sticker off or you pull vinyl off of whatever backer that it's on, it's like a slick surface. And typically that is some type of wax paper, wax coated type backer, which we have basically kind of turned this board into by painting it with wax paint, which is why we have a struggle to get vinyl to want to stick. And then the other issue is transfer paper. This is a thin paper surface, guys. It really is. I want you to look at this. This piece has been painted. You can see the paint through that. That's how thin that is. You can see maybe how sparse that glue is on that surface. When the paint goes through, it hits that glue and it re-wets it. And a lot of times you get lifting, you get ripping. It's such a thin surface that transfer tape is honestly strong enough to rip that paper surface. And we don't want to rip off all of our pretty painting. This is probably the hardest part to me of messing with vinyl, is doing it with gel nails. And if you see this, I cut my transfer paper, down really, really close. Can you guys see that? How close I cut all that? And that is to keep from pulling my wood paper surface off of this piece. So there we go. Now I'm starting to get, it's a little harder too because I have trimmed it down so close. And I want you to see, I even trimmed out that intersection. Can you see here where there would have been a lot of kind of surface area there of transfer tape going down? I even trimmed that out with a craft blade. There we go. So you can see I even took out all of this portion so that I did not have that as a sticky surface here. And I'm just going to use my little strip to, this is probably the hardest part about using vinyl or something like that on here, is when you cut all that transfer paper down, which kind of usually helps you align your vinyl, then you really got to eyeball it. But the way that I set this up, this center strip is the very center of your stocking, so keep that in mind. That'll make it helpful. I'm not going to stick down a whole lot. I use popsicle sticks rather than my vinyl tools and my Cricut tools. The reason is they are a soft wood. They're flexible, they're pliable. We already know that you can put a lot of damage in this surface just rubbing that down it. You can see where it put a line in it. The hard Cricut tools, the plastic ones, they can do that down into your vinyl and then leave that kind of indentation into your vinyl, into the area around your vinyl. So I'm a little less likely to do that with a popsicle stick. I'm going to sit and go around every piece of the vinyl very slowly to get it attached to that wax surface. You can always lift it up just a little bit. Make sure you're not having any problems. Make sure you're going to get it stuck down. One of the things that I will say is when you're pulling your vinyl away, and I have found this to be with anything, vinyl people, if I am wrong on this, you guys can correct me. However, I am not a vinyl professional, which means this tip is honestly a little better even since I'm not. If I pull my paper back, almost flip it straight back like this, I tend to have a much easier time than if I just try to pull upwards and away. And you can see that now. Typically, I will put my little popsicle stick down to help keep that flattened out. And I'm pulling straight back rather than lifting up. You can see I'm coming straight back over itself. And you can see how nicely that does. And that's just something that has worked for me. And that came from years of experience with rub-ons. Not vinyl, but in the scrapbook world, rub-ons were very trendy for a long time. And they are a little more fragile than vinyl, so they definitely took a little more care and effort to get good adhesion. So here we are, we're down to the last little bit. Okay, now this step you don't want to skip. Part of the issue that a lot of people have had is that even if they can get their vinyl to stick, it doesn't feel like they've got a good adhesion. Go back in again. Rub each one down with this really soft wooden popsicle stick. Make sure that every single portion, especially on something this detailed, you want really good adhesion. You certainly want to catch it right around any places where your strips meet. Like right here in these creases where it's less likely. So I will do this continually for a little while to make sure that there's really good adhesion. I do not personally recommend doing Mod Podge over this in the grand scheme of things. Now, you can use Mod Podge on a small scale and have no problems. However, this wax surface, that Mod Podge, and I can't tell you right now which one of the matte, wet my wood surface and caused the wood look, the graining look, to start to blur together, and it just looked like it was painted. So it stopped looking as much like wood, and it just almost looked like brown paint. So it did disrupt the paint finish there. I'm just not a fan of the inconsistent results with this type of craft. You can try on your own risk. Given as much practice as I've had, I still have moments where it's hit or miss. So I just kind of learned to stay away from it. Not only that, but honestly, it's not going to help this be an outside piece or anything like that. So I don't see where it's super, super beneficial for my uses. And here we go. You can see I've got a really good adhesion there. And just with a popsicle stick. That is where the magic is at. I don't know why this works with this so much better than most of my Cricut tools. And you probably could do it with your Cricut tools. I just don't want to make the mistake of accidentally gouging down into my vinyl or the area around my vinyl with those. And I know this is not going to leave as much opportunity to make those marks as some of my good tools. Not only that, but if you can see, I can bend this down, put a lot of pressure right here, hold that flat, and really put super flat pressure across there. Where my Cricut tools, I cannot bend like that. So I'm able to put a whole lot of pressure really flat out, kind of like how snowshoes work. That way I'm not leaving anything down into this. So here we go. There is my finished little monogram one. I have not decided if I'm going to decorate this one up with some florals or ribbon or anything. I did kind of like the simplicity idea of this. I'll turn it sideways. And I wanted to share it. It might not be something for you, but the idea behind it was still a little fun. And I wanted to show an easy way to kind of get this stocking shape if you did want to jump into it. So that's all I got for you guys. I'm going to clean up my big hot mess here. And, oh, really quick, I'm going to show you what I did on covering these, just so you have a clean look. So, all I did was wrap. I cut out maybe an inch around, and wrapped it around. I didn't even do full coverage. I did cover mine, though, so that the back was nice and neat. And on my pieces, this one I just used white. But I wanted to give you that kind of quick tip so that I like clean looking pieces. All I had to do was just pull this over, hot glue it down around those very edges. And I cut out a piece of paper that fit, whether you use craft paper, whether you use cardstock, whatever. You could come in with another piece of fabric. But I just like the finished side. I didn't even have to cover this thing on the back side. There is literally just glue right here. Everything that I used, I was able to pull really tight and get a nice edge. This one, when I used the scrap, you can see it almost gave me the start to that, and I just continued that idea all the way around. So that I kind of wanted to throw in there just to show you that you could clean it up a little bit like that. I kind of like to leave some things to the imagination, though. I really do, because I'm able to get more creative that way, and I assume a lot of people kind of work that way. So have fun with this idea. Pick something out. It doesn't matter. Coordinate it to yours. I think some red and black buffalo check up here would be absolutely cute with this rustic look. This is going to be absolutely cute. However, guys, I'm going to give you a heads up. I was forbidden to use these because my other half plans on making his own stocking. I don't know what's coming up with that. Every now and then he gets a wild hair, guys, and he wants to jump in and do his little thing like his truck and his pumpkins. So I have been forbidden to use the really nice fluffy ones. Those are his, and hopefully we'll get to see on the group page what he comes up with. It's pretty interesting. He doesn't have the crafty, pretty side. He likes the building things out and putting pieces together side. So we'll see what he comes up with. I hope you guys get to craft. I'm going to try to knock out as many as I can before I have to adult today. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.